Hello guys, and welcome to Kayasi's YouTube channel again, or for the first time if you haven't been here before. Probably shouldn't have said that, but anyway, this is my modeling tutorial for all of you guys. Basically going through, well, the basics, figuring out how to start projects, how to set them, where to start with modeling, and all the sort of terminology I'm going to go through bit by bit as we cover the step-by-step process. Okay, so this is purely modeling. I'm not going to cover anything like texturing or something like that. I just want to go through modeling today. I will do texturing in a further tutorial. So let's get started. Right, so if you've seen my introduction to Maya, then you'll know pretty much what Maya is supposed to look like, the layout, the most important buttons and where to find them, and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to do any major introductions, I'm just going to get right into it. Okay, so when you're modeling a character, or even just a more complicated object, what usually helps is to have image planes first. If you don't know what those are, it is basically a side and front view of your image or of your object or character that you import into the space here. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to start off. First of all, we need to set the project. So we go up here to File, go all the way down to Project Window. You want to click on this. Now this is important. The project window helps you create projects where you can put all of your work for that project. Okay. So for example, this is the last one that I made. What I want to do is I want to click New. Okay. And I want to name that project, so I'm going to show you how to model a character today, and that character's name is Gitch. So I'm just going to, I'm just going to name it that, and then I'll click Accept. So once I've done that, I then go down to Set Project, and you'll find all the projects going in this window here. So these will be all the ones you have. You'll get a default file anyway, but all of these are mine that I've made before. So Gitch, that's the one that I'm going to be using to show you today, and then I just want to set it here. Okay, so now you know that absolutely everything you make, all the images you use, all the textures, all the models, all the renders, everything that you make in Maya in this project will be saved there, which is really damn useful, because the last thing you need is it going into every other file and having to find out where you put everything. So remember to do that first. That is the first thing that you must do. Next up, when it comes to creating a character or something similar, what you really want to do, excuse the Facebook noise if you heard that, is draw a character for them. No doubt if you are a character designer, if you're starting a project, you'll have gone through the processes of designing and picking the design you like and all that kind of stuff, and you really want it to be accurate. You know, it's not easy to build a 2D image in your mind or from paper directly into 3D with no references. It is really difficult, and if you can do it, then you're a freak. I'm sorry, but you are. A good freak maybe, but still a freak. So yeah, so what I'm going to do is just show you how to import images into your view here, so that you can start to build effectively and properly. So what I'm going to show you first of all is how not to do it. For example, if I go to View here, an image plane here, and then import an image, I need to go find said image. Remember where I put it. Opal. And here I have a side panel and a front panel. Okay. So what I want to do is import those in here. So if I just click on these, that'll open up. But, and this is exactly what you don't want to happen, what happens now is no matter how you turn around your grid, that picture will stay exactly where it is, and there is a particular reason why. It's because you're in perspective view. Okay, so if you watch my introduction, you'll know there are different views. If you press the space bar, it will show you the different views you have here. And yeah, that image will now basically follow you around everywhere because you've put it in perspective. So what I want to do is get rid of that. Instead, I want to go to my front view. Okay, and it will show you the grid in a different way. That's fine. And I'm going to go back and find that image again. And that one. So I put that in there now. So if I go back into perspective here, the picture stays still, okay? So if you do ever have that problem, you know why, okay? Right, now what we've got to do is adjust it so that it is set properly. Now what I tend to do for this is go to your friend, the attribute editor, trademark, and I need to go down to, if I scroll down here, yeah, it is placement extras. So this is the size of your image, as is this down here, okay? But these three boxes here are the ones you need for movement. And what I like to do here is I like to change the image in here because it's more accurate. So I want that to stay on the center line, so that view is fine. If you press down Control on your keyboard and then click over the box, you can drag the image as such, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to, see, 10. Okay, that's about right. Her feet are pointing downwards in the picture, so that's fine. When they are flat, they will look different. I just have a habit of drawing characters with their feet down. And then I'm going to put this back because I need it at the back of the grid here. Okay, so that's where it is. You need this space obviously for modeling, so that's why you want to move them back a bit. And now you want to do the same for your side view. Okay, you can see you have the front view picture there, and we're going to put this one in here. So if we go back, image plane, import image. It only needs to be a JPEG. It really doesn't need to be anything like complicated like a PNG or anything like that. It doesn't need to be see-through. It just needs to be a basic image of your front and side. One way that I tend to make the side and front profiles so that they are accurate and they do match up with each other as accurately as possible is I tend to do them in Photoshop. And I will draw out the first layer. I will draw out the front view first, and then I'll put another layer over the top of it, draw down the opacity of the first layer, and I will do the side view over that so that I know that it all matches up as much as it possibly can. Now I know that I have rushed this image a bit. I remember I rushed it, so just so that I knew I had something to use. You really don't want to rush it. Okay, it really does help if you have side views and front views that actually match up with each other, because it means you're doing less guesswork. Okay, there we go. So now we are going to adjust that as well. So I did +10 for that, and that should now be roughly the same. Okay, so if I start modeling, I can now make sure that those, I don't know, I now know that those roughly match up. There we go, okay? And I can start to model from this. Now, when it comes to modeling, in fact, I'll start there. One thing, the important word of the day for this one, for this tutorial, is edgeflow. Edgeflow is a very important part of modeling. And I will explain why better when it comes to modeling the face. I'll give it a shot now, but it's easier to show people than it is to explain. So for example, you see her face here. Now it would be very easy for me to create this shape of the head, really easy. It's literally just a cone, maybe with a sphere on top of it attached to each other. That's absolutely fine. But if I want to animate this face, that is not fine. Edgeflow has to follow the natural curves of the face. It has to follow the natural curve of deformation in the body. So for example, if I go to front view, it might actually... Okay. So you can see how the grid is working here. against this model, against this drawing. And you can see how the lines, the straight lines, cut through. That's exactly what you don't want when you're modeling. You don't want the lines to be coming straight down here in the body. You don't want them to be cutting at awkward angles. You want the edges, the lines in your model to flow with the actual body, so that when you come to animate it, it doesn't bend in an awkward way, okay? You don't want it bending, cutting across polygons. You don't want it basically breaking because it can't quite deform the way you want it to. And effective edge flow basically means less polygons are needed. If you do edge flow correctly, you won't need to have really, really in-depth polygons because it will bend in the correct place, okay? So let me show you what I mean. So first of all, I'm just going to create a cylinder and just drag it up like that. Probably a bit too big. Let's just put that down. Okay, now there are several ways you can add and take away polygons and edges in shapes. One of them, for example, if you've already drawn them, is to go to the attribute editor, your friend, trademark, and you want to go to polycylinder 1. You will have here subdivisions, the axis, the height, and the caps. So the caps is the ones in the top. The height are the ones determining how many are in the length of the object, and the axis are all the divisions down the side here. Okay, so if I just focus on that, what I can do is change the subdivisions as such. Now, what I can't stress enough is please, 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 please do not start off with a 30 polygon object because it will break your computer, okay? If you start off with too many polygons and you find it harder and harder to build the model, to combine bits and pieces, to make sure that everything is joined properly so that when it comes to animating it doesn't break, just don't do it. Don't use 30 polygons for the love of all that is good in the world. Stay around maybe 8 to 9 polygons because I can guarantee that you're going to naturally build up those polygons, and if you stay at a low level, by the time you're done you will have a decent level. Okay, what you don't want by the end of your modeling phase is to have a 1,000,000 polygon object because Maya just won't like it. Okay, it's not going to thank you for doing that. So I usually keep around 8 to 10 subdivisions and maybe about somewhere between 5 to 8 maybe height divisions, just to keep it simple. Okay, I can take them out, I can add them in as necessary. It's not set in stone when you create an object, so remember that. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my front view and I'm going to start positioning this model against it. Now I want to make sure that the center line of this object is following the center line of the grid, so that I know that this is central, or as central as I can make it. Okay, so that's about right. Yeah, I think I've done a good job there. That's fine. So then we just need to start. I'm just going to that just for. Then we just need to start building it. Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to do. If you're planning on adding things to the top, for example, this is going to go into the neck and the head, so I don't need any polygons here because you need to delete polygons in order to attach other polygons. So I'm just going to shift and select these faces around here, and then I'm just going to press the delete button and I'm going to get rid of them. And I'm going to do the same for the bottom as well because I'm going to add legs to that. So now we just have this basic cylinder. Okay. If I go back to the front, I'm going to go to my edge tool and I'm going to start selecting them and just lining them up as such. I'm going to leave that line because I'm going to attach things to it. And you just start following the natural curves of your model. I'm going to move that up a bit, like that. Same with this one, I'm going to bring it in at the waist so that I know that it will deform properly in the waist. And then I'm also going to just bring that in for the hips. Okay. And then what I do is I go to the side view. So you can see it looks a bit weird for the side. That's fine. We can sort that out. Okay, so if we just line that up roughly, and then what I can do is I can go to X-ray view, and you can see it doesn't quite line up. That is okay. I kind of know what I'm doing, so that's fine. But this is what I mean by the importance of having a side and front view that do line up. It is very helpful to you if you manage that. Basically, the thing with animation is the however perfect you start off is how it will continue throughout the rest of the project. So if you really want to make sure you do a good job, then do a good job from the beginning. Don't scrimp and think you can fix it later, okay? Really important. But this is purely just to show you guys what can be done. Being lazy. Having a basic understanding of anatomy is a really good idea here too. Just because obviously you need to know how the body is formed, how it shapes. So for example, the side is skinnier than the front. And it just really helps. It just really helps to make things look like they're supposed to work. It is interesting how just the slightest difference in understanding of anatomy can make things work better. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to build in the arms in a bit, but I want to finish off sort of building into the neck as well, because that's an important part. And I want to be able to attach the shoulders at the top. So if I double click on this, select the whole line, and go to extrude by pressing that button there. It is also in the menu for the 2017 version. I am just not using it yet because as I explained previously, it is right now broken as hell. So I'm not going to use it. But yeah, for the time being, it's fine. And one thing I can start doing is I can start angling things differently. So like I said with edge flow, you want it to follow the natural curve. You really want it to follow a natural curve. You don't want it to be blocked up against, to be blocked in an awkward way. You can see how the head will now flow into the neck in there. And I will be able to build up the legs. But first I'm going to start off with the arm. Okay. So what I can do is I can create a cylinder and shoot editor. I need to minimize that to 8 as well, because what's going to happen, basically, if I click on this, the shoulder is going to attach around here. So if I select these faces and just cut them out, that's going to make a hole in the side, fine. But you can see now where that arm is basically going to go. I know it looks a bit weird at the moment, but that's fine. The whole point of blocking out is not to add in any detail first. You block out the basic shape always before focusing on the detail. The detail will come later. And as long as you get the general shape and the edge flow right in the beginning, adding detail will become a lot easier later. And as I said, you can always add and take away edges and polygons as you need to, so don't worry, it's not a set thing. Okay, so again what I want to do is take away I have a oh yeah, I want see what I did there? I did something very wrong, not supposed to. Right, so if you want to add in the subdivisions, you do that before you start deleting things. I completely forgot that I had. If you want to change it first of all by when you originally make it, so you don't have to faff around with it later, what you want to do is you want to go to Create, Polygon Primitives, make sure you are in the Polygons Animation menu, the Polygons menu, create, polygon primitives, and cylinder. And then you want to make sure you click on this little box here because that will bring up all the things for you, all the options. And once you've fiddled with them here, this will be the preset for all future cylinders that you make until you go back to change them. So you can see that's now different to the one I made last time. And if I go to create that again, it will give me the same specs that I just gave it. Again. And I can go back to my front view. And again, I can just start to change the shape. Drag it up here with the W key, that will let me move it. The E key, keyboard, will help me rotate it. And the R key will help me scale it. And again, this is an important part for edgeflow. So you'll see how the lines don't meet here. You want to start by roughly lining those up, and you kind of want them to meet halfway. If you think about where your shoulder is, let's say that her shoulder's about here, and that's where it's going to bend, that's where you want the point to be. Maybe I move this line a bit so that it matches up here at the armpit. And then what I can do is I can make those points meet half. But for the time being, let's just focus on. And then again, I want to remember to have a line in the natural bend of the arm. Going to be about, I'm just going to rotate. I want that bend to be, so that's now going to bend. If I animated that, deformed the thing, that it would then animate across that line when I tell it to influence. Now you can see we have the basic shape of the arm. Side view doesn't match up. Fine. And what I can do then is I can start to just roughly take the lines, squeeze them a little bit, start to make it look a bit more natural. And if I go into perspective view and F key on my keyboard, you can see that that arm is starting to come into shape. Okay. Perfect. Right, now, this character is only basic, so I'm not going to go into too much detail with other joints and bits and pieces. But what some people tend to do for more complex characters, for more humanistic characters, is they'll tend to add in an extra bit of a sphere up here for the shoulder and start to add in some more polygons around here just so that it deforms properly, because again, following muscular tissue and natural curves in the mesh will actually help it deform properly when it comes to animation. So you're not just building, you know, a rough shape out of Lego bricks here. You are trying to really make it realistic. You're really trying to make sure that it moves the way it's supposed. Okay, so now you can see we have the arm. You can see we have the hole that the arm is meant to attach to. And what I want to do is I just want to start to drag these points together a little bit, just so that I can fix the shape later. It's not a problem. I can add in more polygons so it can look rough as hell for the time being, as long as I know it works. Two are going to be these ones. Two are going. Here. And then that one is very roughly just start to bring those. Don't worry about doing it for both sides of the model. I'm going to show you what to do with that later. So you can see now roughly how they're going to match up. And I can so you can see now how it takes a little bit of just a little bit of initiative really about how it's going to look. Sometimes the drawing that you've made or the character that you've designed, it won't always translate well in 3D, and that's when you kind of got to be a bit creative with it. And that's why it is important to give yourself the best chance possible of getting it right. Okay, so what I need to do next is I need to combine these two objects. I can't join them together until they become one object. So for the time being, you can see that they're separate. But if I go to Mesh, having shift selected both of them, and then combine, that is now one whole object. And that's when I can start to join the edges together. Now, one thing to remember when you're joining these edges here, so if I go to the point component button and shift select, if I select that one, then shift select the one that I need it to attach to, I can do that. And then I need to press this button up here, which is merge. And that will merge those two vertices together and you have a solid line. One thing that is really important to remember as well when it comes to animation is making sure that every single vertice is not or is attached to another one. There are no gaps, because for example, if I made those really close together and I couldn't tell that I hadn't actually combined them and joined them together, when it comes to animation and weight painting and the such, which I will again explain in another tutorial, those tears in the mesh will become obvious, and there is no way to fix it. Once you've got to that stage of animating, there is nothing you can do about it without starting all over again. So to save yourself that heartache, and it will kill you because it's horrible, I've done that before, you need to make sure that you've done everything. You've done every single vertice, none of them are left unchecked. Okay? So then you have a moving arm. Okay? All right. Now, as we can see here, the shoulder isn't quite lining up anymore and the neck is a bit disjointed. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in another line. Woohoo! Okay. So I need to go into object mode for this. And what I need to do then is go to, in fact, I'm just going to turn off X-ray for this so you can see better. Pardon me. I am going to go to, no, that's not what I'm going to do either. There we go. Insert edge loop tool under the mesh tools. Okay. There's also the multi-cut tool, which does several different things to your mesh depending on the option you choose. But the insert edge loop tool does just that. It inserts an edge loop. Okay. So what I can do is I can click that button and then click. And if I click and hold, I can drag that along anywhere I like. And then once I let go, it places that line for me. Okay. So what I can then do is I can start to rearrange these vertices. You do need to go click on the W key or go back to your select tool so that you can come out of that. Okay, and you can see now that there is more. Okay. Not the best model I've ever made, but it'll do. And you can see how that's starting to come together. All right. Now, okay, so you can see how that's starting to come together now. And what we want to do now, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to show you how to mirror, because what's a good idea is to just occasionally mirror your object to make sure that it is working out the way you want it to. So what we usually do is we'll work on one side of the model, get it all completely perfect, and delete half of it, okay? Delete the half that you're not working on once you've done what you need to with the shape. Front view. So you'll have that half there. What you can then do is go to mesh. Yeah, it is mesh. Okay, so you want to go to mirror geometry, and this is when it's important to. This is why it's important to have the model on the central line, so that you can mirror it properly without it, you know, creating loads of gaps and loads of problems. So if I go to that menu there, you see you have an option to merge with the original, so it will then merge it as much as it possibly can. Again, watch out for this feature because it will not merge all of the vertices all the time unless you have it somehow miraculously spot on the center line. It will have issues basically. So you can click that box if you want, but just remember to double check all of the vertices along the mirrored edge, just to make sure that it has them all. So if I click on that now, mirror, you can see it's done it the wrong way, okay? You need to actually decipher which angle you want it to mirror on. So at the moment it's plus X, which means it will put it on this side. I want to go to minus X. I want to go to mirror. And you can see there that it's mirrored quite nicely actually. I'm quite happy with that. And you can see the model starting to come together, which is great. The arms are starting to look a bit natural. You've got some good natural curve in there, and it's following the shape of the body, which is exactly what you want. Okay. So we're going to undo that because we don't need to do that right now. Actually, I'm going to undo that as well, just because it will make it easier for this. Right. So what I can do, what I can start to do now is I need to build in the legs, which actually for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth this mesh to add basically, I think it's double the amount of polygons in there. So if I do that, you can see now that the edge has become smoother, the whole object has become smoother. And there are more lines in there too. So it's basically doubled the amount in there. Now, I know in the picture, she is technically crotchless. That can be a massive problem when doing this. Her legs won't be moving very much. She is going to be a game character. But sometimes it's just easier to, and actually looks more natural when you add a bit of a crotch in there. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've just ramped up the polygon count just a little bit, so I can add that in with more detail and still get a good detailed leg. So let's go into front view. And you can see how now that you've smoothed it, it's starting to lose some of its shape. It's not as defined. So that's really easy to fix. We can just go around and quickly just stretch that out again. Back to the natural waistline. What you'll start to notice is that as you get to certain points, if you have 5-pointed vertices, you will actually start to get these lines that don't join properly. So this one, all these lines now will stop at this 5-point convergence, which is one of the reasons you want to try and avoid them as much as possible. You won't be able to completely avoid them. That's not possible. Well, it might be depending on what you're making, but still. They are still kind of unavoidable in some cases, and that's fine as long as it doesn't interfere with deformation and stuff like that. It's absolutely fine. The face is the one particular place you want to try and avoid having them, but it's not always possible as well. And as long as they're in the right places, that's fine. And I will show you, I might actually do a separate tutorial on face and head modeling, because that one is a lot more intricate. And I have a habit of building them from scratch. I don't like the cube method. I've never quite been able to grasp that. So, but that's fine. It's all down to personal preference and what works best for you at the end of the day. There's no, well, there is obviously a right and wrong way to model, but yeah, in terms of, there are a couple of methods that you can use if you're really struggling. So, into the crotch I got to work. And I'm just going to take that and delete it, or it's deleted only half. Yeah, that's okay. So what I can do here is, if I count how many vertices I now have around the edge, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 9 here, which is going to make it a bit awkward for implementing the leg. So I want to try and balance that out a bit. So I'm going to put that to 10. And the way I'm going to do that is by selecting this line, extruding it, and just bringing it to the center. I can level out that line. And then I'm going to extrude it again. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing. Don't that one. Okay. And let's more. And because this is already a part of the object that's been extruded from it, what I can do is I can now add that immediately. I don't have to combine anything. Okay, so what I've done effectively by doing that is I put in an extra point here. All right. Now that I've taken those two out, 1, 2, 3, 8. There we go, 8, perfect. Which means that the cylinder I was using beforehand will still work fine. So if I just bring that, and you can see now where the leg is going to go. And once I mirror that, I will have a bit more space for the legs to move. It will be easier in the long run to animate as well. Okay, so I want to create another polygon, another cylinder, like so. And again, I want to take out the tops and the bottoms. Delete all. There we go. And let's go back into front view. Okay. And we can just start again with same with the arm, mapping them out and moving it to follow the curve of the model. So I want to roughly move that there. And let's put the X-ray. And again, what most people would tend to do at this point is they'd try to build in, the same with the shoulder, they'd try to build in some knee. But again, I don't need to do that. It's a very low poly model. It's not going to matter too much, and she's not going to move too much, if I'm honest. She's going to be a very static character, so that's always helpful. I will go over a more detailed model, probably a human. I have modeled a few of those, so I can go through the basic anatomy of those. And again, you want to remember to start following the curve of the body, so you want these lines to be slightly askewed. just so that they actually follow. Down at the ankle, okay. And you can see now how that's starting to build. Okay, so you have a leg in there. It's always funny when it does that. Okay, and now we go to the side view and we sort that out. Trying to be as quick with this. Well, I know it gets kind of boring watching other people model, but it's YouTube. I can't really teach you guys one-to-one. Okay. Perfect. Right. So now if I go to perspective, you can see how this leg is starting to looks kind of natural, which is nice. I did want a little bit of naturality. It's supposed to be a bit of a mechanical looking sort of computer bug thing, but that's fine. A little bit of organic modeling never hurt anyone. So you can see now that because I have 8 edges, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to match them up effectively, but they will match up. You just got to do a little bit of fiddling with them. So for example, if I know that that has to line there, and this one has to match up there, I can start to build around that, okay? So I'm going to start moving these vertices ever so slightly. Start to put that in there. You know, just don't be afraid to mess around with your model a little bit. It is very much a visual thing. You've got to look at it and see what needs to be done. It's not always set in stone how your model's going to turn out and how you need to build it and stuff. It's all very, it all needs a little bit of sort of initiative when it comes to building it accurately. But the most important thing will always be the edge flow. You always want the edge flow to be as accurate as you can possibly get it. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, but you know, all you can do is practice. So you can see now that's starting to match up to the leg as well. Brilliant. Okay. And what I can do now is I can combine those two objects. Mesh, combine. And I can just add all of these together. So, okay. And now that I know that I have leg in there, it's actually starting to look quite good. It looks a bit odd for the time being, but that's fine. We can start to mess around with that later. You can see that that all of that perfectly matches up. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that out like so. There we go. Okay, and what I can do now is I can mirror that geometry again to see what it looks like. So if I go to object mode, and if I go to mesh and I go to mirror, it will remember the settings I put in last time, and you can see how that's now starting to turn out, which is brilliant. I can, minimize the gap in there. That's fine. That is quite an intense thigh gap, I'm not gonna lie. So, and yeah, you've got a bit of a gap in there, so that it'll be easier to actually move your legs when it comes to animating them. But you can see now how that's really starting to come together. Again, when I add more detail in there, those polygons are going to split up. They're going to become more detailed. I can pull them out more. I can shape them into a more natural form. The beginning of modeling is literally just to make sure you get everything right. I can't stress that enough. Okay, I do smooth now. You can see how that's starting to look. Again, you might want to shift them. You might want to shift the lines a little bit. You might want to rearrange them. You might want to pull them out. You might want to push them in. You can do all sorts with it. But just remember to mess around with it. You'll get your best results when you are a little bit brave and just really push what it looks like. One thing I should probably say, I'm gonna leave that here for today. I'm gonna do a separate tutorial for the head, because the head can be tricky. And I'm sure you've heard enough of me talking for one day. So the last thing I'm going to say to remember is, once you get to this stage with your model and it starts to look really good, you start to get in some detail, you start to get the proportions right, you've got the feet in, you've got the hands in, what you really want to do before you start doing anything else, before you texture, before you model and all that kind of stuff, you want to go to edit, and you want to go to delete by type while having the object selected. And then you want to delete the history. And let me show you why. Right now, if I go to my trusty attribute editor, it has all of this history right here, okay? This will mess with your animation. It will mess with the textures. It will mess with pretty much everything. And you don't want that. So you select your model, you go to delete by type, delete history. Leave the non-deform history alone, that's not necessary. Just delete history. And you can see now, if I look at the attribute editor, all of that history is gone, which means that when I go to deform it, when I go to animate it, when I go to do things with it, it's not going to get in the way. It's not going to mess with the way it moves, with the way it deforms, with the weight painting. It's a completely basic object that, as far as the computer knows, now just sort of came like that, okay? It just happened that way. So you want to remember that. Isn't that weird? Anyway, so yeah, that's just the basics of modeling. You can see now how to get started. You can see how to begin building your own. If you don't have autosave on, turn it on, which if I remember rightly, you do by going to settings and preferences under the window key. Under plugin manager, I can't remember. I've always had autosave on, so forgive me for not remembering where it is. I think it's under here. It might not be. Okay, I'll figure that out. But yeah, so autosave to turn on is a really, really good idea. I promise you, it may seem annoying, but it's really worth your time. Maya has been known to crash, for example, just by smoothing objects, literally just by creating them sometimes. So you really want to be able to save incrementally. And I always forget to save on a regular basis, and it's my biggest downfall. So yeah, so I made this model once before, so okay, that's fine. So yeah, autosave will save about every 10 minutes. But it won't autosave if you haven't made any progress on the scene, so you're not going to get loads of random pop-ups when you haven't even touched the computer for half an hour. But yeah, it really, I promise you, it really is worth your time. But I'm going to leave it at that, okay? It's been so great having you guys here. I hope that this video was really useful to you. If you have any comments or suggestions, please post them in the box below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. I don't have much of a life, so I will probably get back to you really quickly. But for the meantime, ciao, and I hope you have a good day. Bye, guys.